I robot, Isaac Asimov, I robot. The various museums came in for their share of attention, together with the parks and the beach and the aquarium. She was taken halfway of the Houston in a ejection steamer fit out of the aquarium of the mid-20s. She traveled into the stratosphere on an exhibition trip where the sky turned deep purple and the stars came out and the misty earth below looked like a huge concave bowl. Down under the waters of the Long Island Sound, she was taken in a glass-walled subsea vessel. They were in a green and wavering world, quaint and curious things ogled her and wiggled suddenly away. On a most prosaic level, Mrs. Watson took her to the department stores where she could revel in another type of fairyland. In fact, when the months had really sped, the Westerns were convinced that everything conceivable had been done to take Gloria's mind once and for all of the departed Robbie, but they were not quite sure they had succeeded. In fact, remained that wherever Gloria went, she displayed the most observed and concentrated interest in such robot as happened to be present. No matter how exciting the spectacle before her, though how noble to her girlish eyes, she turned away instantly if the corner of her eyes caught a glimpse of a metallic movement. Mrs. Weston went out of her way to keep Gloria away from all robots, and the matter of finally climaxed in the episode at the Museum of Science Industry. The museum had announced a special children's program in which exhibit of scientific research is scaled down to a child mind was to be shown. The Western, of course, placed it often the list of absolutely. It was while the Westerns were standing totally absorbed in the exploits in a powerful electromagnetic that Mrs. Weston suddenly became aware of the fact that Gloria was no longer with her. Initial panic gave way to calm decision, and enlisting the aid of three attendants, a careful search was begun. Gloria, of course, was not one to wander aimlessly. However, on her age, she was an unusually determined and purposeful girl, quite full of the maternal genes in that respect. She had seen a huge sign of the third floor, which had said, "This way to the talking robot." Having spelled it out to her, and having noticed that her parents did not seem to wish to move in the proper direction, she did the obvious thing, waiting for an opportune moment of parental distraction. She calmly disengaged herself and followed the shine. The talking robot was a tour de force, the thoroughly impractical device for jesting publicly value only. Once an hour, an escorted group stood before it and asked the question. The robot engineer in charge, carefully whispered, does the engineer decide the suitable for the robot's circuit or transmit to the talking robot? It was rather dull. It may be nice though that the scale of 14, 196, that the temperature of the moment is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air press 30.02 inches of mercury, that the atomic weight of sodium is 23, but one doesn't really need a robot for that. One especially does not need on wildly, totally immobile mass of wire and coil spreading over 25 square yards. Poor people bothered to return for the second helping, but one girl in her middle teens sat quietly on a bench waiting for a third. She was the only one in the room when Gloria entered. Gloria did not look at her. To the moment, another human being was but an unconsiderable item. She saved her attendant to this large thing with the wheels. For a moment, she hesitated in dismay. It didn't look like any robot she had ever seen. Cautiously head doubtfully, she raised her table voice. Please, Mr. Robot, sir. Are you the talking robot, sir? She wasn't true. She wasn't sure, but it seemed to her that a robot that actually talked to her was a great deal of politeness. The girl in her mid-teens allowed a look at intense concentration to cross her thin, plain face. She whispered out a small notebook and began writing in rapid patook. There was a oily here, gears and mechanically timbered voice boomed in the word direct accent and intonation. I am the robot that talks. Gloria stared at pupilly. It did talk, but the sound came from inside somewhere else. There was no face to talk to. She said, Can you help me, Mr. Robot, sir? The talking robot was designed to answer questions, and only such questions as it could answer had been put to it. It was quite confident to its ability. Therefore, I can help you. Thank you, Mr. Robot, sir. Have you seen Robbie? Who is Robbie? He's a robot, Mr. Robot, sir. She stretched to tiptoes. He's about so high, Mr. Robot, sir. Only higher. He's very nice. He's got a head, you know. I mean, you haven't, but he has, Mr. Robot, sir. The talking robot has been left behind. A robot? Yes, Mr. Robot, sir. A robot just like you, except he can talk, of course, and looks like a real person. A robot like me? Yes, Mr. Robot, sir. To which the talking robot only response was an erratic splutter and occasional incoherent sound. The radical generalization offered it, i.e., its existence, not as a particular object, but as a number of general group, was too much for it. Loyally, it tried to encompass the concept that half a dozen coils burn out. Little warning signals were buzzing. The girl in her mid-teens at that point. She had enough for a physics 1 paper on practical aspect of robotics. This paper was Susan Kelvin's first of many of the subject. Gloria stood waiting and carefully concealed impatient for the machine's answer when he heard the cry behind her of "There she is," and recognized that cry as her mother's. What are you doing here? You're a bad girl, cried Mrs. Weston. Anxiety dissolving at once into anger. Do you know, you frightened your mama and dad almost to death. Why did you run away? The robot engineer has also dashed in, tearing his hair and demanding who was the gathering crowd had tampered with the machine. Can't anybody read signs? You yelled. You are not allowed to hear read out by attendant. Gloria raised the grieved voice over the din. I only came to see the talking robot, Mama. I saw he might know the Robbie was because they are both robot. And then, as the thought the Robbie was suddenly brought forcibly home to her, he burst into a sudden storm of tears, and I got to find Robbie. Mama, I got to. Mr. Weston strangled her cry and said, Oh, good heaven, come home, George. This is more than I can stand. That evening, George Weston left for several hours, and the next morning he approached his wife with something that looked suspiciously like smug companions. I've got an idea, Grace. About what? Was the gloomy, uninterested query. About Gloria. You are not going to suggest buying back that robot? No, of course not. Then go ahead. I might as well listen to you. Nothing I've done seemed to have done any good. All right, here's what I've been thinking. The whole trouble with Gloria is that she sees Robbie as a person and not a machine. Naturally, she can't forget him. Now, if we manage to convince her that Robbie was nothing more than a mess of steel and copper in the form of a seat and wires with electricity, it's just of life. How long would her longings last? It's the psychological attack. If you see my point. How do you plan to do it? Simple. Where do you suppose? I went last night. I possessed Robertson of US Robot and Mechanical Man Incorporated to arrange for a complete tour of his premise tomorrow. The three of us will go, and by the time you are through, Gloria will have it drilled into her that a robot is not alive. Mrs. Weston's eyes widened gradually, and something glinted in her eyes that was quite like sudden admiration. Why, George, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. And George Winston pressed the buttons straightened. Only kind I have.